Alright, so welcome to Chef Marcel Cooks. Welcome to my channel. I hope you enjoy the shows that I've been putting together so far. They'll get better and more interesting, I promise. Today we have a little bit of a serious subject in a way, because there are some of you that are suffering from constipation. I developed this little recipe when Sylvia first got sick, when she had to go through her cancer treatments and all the chemo and all the other medication that they kept prescribing her for countering the side effects, and then side effects for that. So it was just on and on and on, more medication, and she started getting so constipated that it was really getting really bad. And so they decided to start giving her laxatives and stool softeners, and that's when I drew the line and said, yeah, no more. Let's start looking at this a little bit more naturally. Yes, the chemo is necessary, but all the other stuff, I think we can work on that. So I started developing a whole menu plan for her. And this is one of the first things that I started with. And it's a papaya smoothie. The nice thing about papaya is that it has certain enzymes that start to basically digest what you have inside you. So it helps your digestive system. Some people like to use papaya to marinate meat to soften them up. I don't really like to do that because those enzymes actually digest the meat and it becomes a little bit slimy and nasty. So I have different things for that. But for your intestinal tract, this is perfect. It's really healthy. Now, some people might say, I'm really not that crazy about papaya. It tastes kind of weird. It's not quite sweet. I don't know what it is. I just don't care for it much. And Sylvia had that same problem. And of course, her appetite was down at that time as well. So I had to make it interesting for her. So one of the things that I discovered as a chef making sorbet is when you make things really, really cold, you have to add a lot of flavor, or in sorbets, a lot of sugar to it to make them taste better. So I decided to cut the papaya and cube it and then put that in the freezer, completely frozen, and then make a smoothie the next day out of the frozen papaya. Do not add any sugar, of course, because sugar is bad for cancer patients. So no sugar. And in doing so, I reduced that kind of weird flavor of the papaya. To make it a little bit more tasty, I added a banana to it. You don't want to add too much banana either. You want to have as much papaya in your smoothie as you can. But if you say, well, I'm doing it for the yumminess, then of course, by all means, add more banana. Sylvia also likes it with a little bit of milk in there. It just makes it a little bit creamier for her. So I do that for her. Then water is of course an important factor. And then for the inflammation, because you know all those medications also give you inflammation, so your joints start to hurt, especially the chemotherapy does that a lot. So as we all know, turmeric is really good to reduce inflammation. I like to use fresh turmeric better, but again, Sil thought that flavor was a little too strong, so I go with the dried. It also works. The fresh turmeric works better, so if your grocery store sells that, use that, grate it freshly, and then put that in your smoothie. But the powdered turmeric works as well. Now, when you use turmeric and you use that for that property of reducing your inflammation, you have to activate the turmeric. And the only way it actually really will work is if you add black pepper to it. Any type of pepper will work, but black pepper tends to work the best. So add a few grinds of black pepper. That when that gets into your intestinal tract, that starts to activate, and then that actually kickstarts the turmeric in doing its inflammation reducing property. So that is an important thing to know. A lot of people take turmeric capsules and nothing else, and it really doesn't do much. It does something, but it really doesn't do what it's supposed to do. Okay, so the papaya, how do we get into it? Number one, just cut it in half. That's the easiest. And then we have all those beautiful, almost look like caviar seeds. There's little pearls. Now, if you are very heavily constipated, you might want to consider to grind up some of those seeds in your smoothie as well. They actually are diarrhea causing, so that really will help you loosen up. I know it's not really a funny conversation, but you know, this is really about health-based cuisine every now and then, so that's why we're covering that today. So those seeds, they are peppery and somewhat bitter, so it's not for everybody, okay? So if you don't really care for that pepperiness or that bitterness, leave it out. And I'll do it on the other side of my left hand towards the camera. That might be a little bit better, so you can actually see what I'm doing. There, so just carefully scrape that out. Now what you can also do is spread those seeds out on a piece of paper or on a cookie sheet, if you will, and then place them somewhere where there is a little bit of a draft, and then dry them. And when they are completely dried, you can put them in a pot of dirt and then plant them, and then you have your own papaya plant. Now they are a little bit sensitive to temperature, so you want to make sure that your temperature stays nice and warm. We had one that was about 5 feet tall, still in a pot, and when we had our last frost, I brought it inside, and that took care of that. So now it's back outside and it's doing great. So now it's going to go into the ground. So that's the first thing you do, remove those seeds. And then the next thing that we do is we cut it in half again and cut it into wedges. So we have usually 3 wedges out of each quart. There. And then we want to remove it from the skin. Let me move this out of the way. There we go. And then remove it from the skin. So I make a little rocking motion where it's standing up straight. My knife is horizontal, and I go right in between the flesh and the skin and just slide it all the way across the skin to the other side. Every now and then you make a boo-boo and you go out of it, then you just do the same thing from the other side. Okay, just like that. And then you cut it into bite-sized pieces, almost ice cube size, because you are going to freeze them, and that makes it a lot easier to get them into your blender. There we go. And so just make those into little cubes. There we go. And then we stick them in a Ziploc bag, and then they go into the freezer, and then the next day they are completely frozen, ready for your smoothie. Let me wash my hands. All right, so then the next day, as I said, we have our papaya frozen. Grab your blender cup, and then you add as much papaya as you like. So usually Sylvia puts about 8 pieces, roundabout. Of course, if they're a little bigger or smaller, that also makes a difference. So I'm putting about 10, so I'll have a little bit for myself today. And then we add our first liquid, which is the milk that goes in the bottom. And the reason I'm building it up like that is because since our blender turns upside down a little bit, I want the soft stuff, which is the banana, on the top, so that the blade, the first thing that it grinds is the soft stuff. It doesn't have to start with those hard cubes of papaya. We take our turmeric. I put about a teaspoon of that. You can measure it a little bit more exact if you like. There you go. Teaspoon of the turmeric. Then the fresh ground pepper. It also adds a nice flavor to it, the pepper, besides activating the turmeric. Then we add our water. It's about 1.5 cups of water, for those of you that like to measure. If you have a banana that is ripe, it peels off real easy from the top. If it's not so ripe, it actually peels easier from the bottom. So just in case you ever struggle with one of those, just go from the bottom. And then we just put those in as well. All right, then we put our blade on. Make sure you put that on straight. Put it on the machine, click it in place, and extract. Of course, it helps if you turn it on first. And then she's done. And you just have one of those each day at a time that is most convenient for you and most beneficial. What I would not do is do it before you go to bed. I would do it earlier in the day. Because remember, it does activate your bowel system, so you want to make sure that you are wide awake for that. Okay, honey, your shake is ready. There you go, Mom.
Thank you.
And this is who I do it all for. Thanks for watching.
Delicious.
I'll put the recipe downstairs. Don't forget to like it, click on subscribe. We'll see you next time. Thank you.